a purely advisory board, what's to ensure the next people that sit in your chair are going to be equally as cooperative? Simply put, the ordinance that you're considering tonight, should it be adopted in its form that you see it tonight, will be a disservice to the citizens of this community. I'm asking you simply to send clear message to staff to go back to the drawing board and work further on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak publicly about new business item number 3? That being the case, council, questions?
Well, I tend to agree, I think, with what Eric said. The EUB itself wasn't formed over the course of just a single work session and then time with staff. I don't know that the ordinance that's been brought forth is embedded in a way that's going to ensure not only the prosperity of what the Gardner Energy has been able to achieve thus far, but also the continued growth and success of that. I think there's not a single person in the room that doesn't think the ordinance needs reviews and needs changed in some ways. But I think the process needs to take longer than it has. I think that means that there's going to need to be more work sessions involved that might be between ourselves, the director of the Gardner Energy and the board itself, talking about how the consequences in each step of this new ordinance are going to affect how they perceive business with Gardner Energy and affect, at the end of the day, how that's going to affect Gardner citizens. I just think we're moving too quickly. And actually with that, I'd like to move that we table new business item number 2 until a time where we would be able to schedule work sessions with both the EUB and further discussions with members of the staff and legal representation to build an ordinance that all are more comfortable with and will serve the citizens best.
Second.
Motion Freeman, second Shute, that we table new business item number 3. All those, further comment?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Councilmember Shute what has changed since his direction in agreement with other council members.
I was not in agreement. You remember incorrectly. If you look back at the tape, you know that I stood with the EUB with regard to a lot of their authority. I don't think that this ordinance that we have before us right now, which basically brings the services that are part of Gardner Energy back under the full jurisdiction. I'm talking about just establishing service in certain areas, back underneath Public Works and under City Council jurisdiction, is necessarily the right way to go. There's 2 ways we have to look at this. The first one is that the current ordinance, as it currently stands, is not operable. It's not enforceable under Kansas statute. It has to be changed. We understand this. We've already talked about a change of the ordinance to clarify the relationship between EUB and the City of Gardner. The second thing is, what do we replace it with? Obviously, it needs to be replaced. We've looked at one approach and one approach only, and that approach being an advisory board that reports to the city government and is accountable entirely to the City Council, and we ultimately make all the decisions. All right? The other approach, which hasn't really been reviewed or considered, is a Board of Public Utilities, which is truly independent. Now you're talking about a board which is statutorily allowed, that basically takes its quasi-governmental entity, that takes that responsibility and puts it to a totally independent entity that would work in the best interest of the City of Gardner and would be accountable to the citizens of the city.
I would suggest that this is not an original idea.
I know it's not. I know it's one that you've been talking about, Mayor.
Chris, just as a point, I'm actually not sure that a move to table is up for debate and question by rules of order. We may need clarification on that, but the way I read it, actually a move to table is up for immediate vote.
I think the mayor can call
right that. Okay, absolutely.
You would ask for comments, so that's why.
Yeah, well, and that's. I'm going to admit I'm still a rookie, so.
I think we've now taken the time to be able to consider all the options available to us, and that's why I believe we need a table.
if they're wanting a vote to table, then, then I would suggest that we give a vote to table, but Larry, if the motion doesn't pass, then you're going to have plenty of opportunity to work your way through the ordinance.
Can I ask one question about the vote to table, specifically of our new city attorney?
Sure.
If we vote to table, up until then, the EUB ordinance that's in place today will continue to be the rule. What issues legally do you see with that remaining?
You know, there are several. I've kind of worked through the state statutes. I've got some real concerns about the purported authority that's granted under that ordinance, and whether that complies with Kansas law, whether the delegations that are given to the EUB are allowable under Kansas law. You know, I've got a kind of a laundry list of things that would need to be addressed to really bring it into conformity with Kansas law if we were to go away from the ordinance that's presently on the table, which can be done, but there are things that need to be cleaned up without question. If you want me to be specific, I can, but it might
No,
take a
I'm
while.
just asking in general, what is our, I guess, one of, we've had a lot of discussion about this, and I know some people may like to act like this is new, but honestly, we've been talking about this for 2 years. And I think that no one argues the EUB's success, nobody argues that they've gone, that it's been, things have been handled the way it's supposed to be. I think that people have some very specific concerns, and I mean, I'll give you mine. I think that the way salaries are handled are wrong, and I will go on record because I think there's some misconception in the public. I mean, for example, we have a electric plant operator paid $68,000 a year, and our wastewater plant operators paid $41,000 a year. That's a problem when you're talking about the same technical job titles. So that's a concern for me. I think the budget, the structure goals, we need to be consistent, and I also think economic development needs to be discussed. And I don't necessarily disagree with a board being able to handle that at all, whether it's advisory or whether it's much set up like it is today. I just think that we have to come to an agreement that everybody's comfortable with and meets the legal test, so that there's open discussion about these things. So, and today, whether that's just communication gaps or whatever, that stuff does not happen, so.
So, I just want to make sure I understand, right now, we're not operating, it appears, within the law, according to what you've researched.
That's my interpretation.
And as our counsel in keeping us in lawful good standing, you would recommend that we
Well, I mean,
cease and desist from not operating with,
well, I mean, it needs to be addressed, you know, as quickly as possible. I mean, you can't operate in violation of Kansas laws.
and based on, I'm assuming if you wrote this, or did we write this and you read it? Or?
No, I was given guidance by the city administrator, by Brian. The mayor was in that meeting, and they gave me the parameters of what was discussed in the work session, and so that's the ordinance that I put together. I'm not saying this is the only fix for the situation, but I was drafting what I understood that the guidance was.
And I assume we paid him for his services, or he will be billing us? So
Yes.
I guess the marching orders that, I'm sure you looked at the tape a second time, or at least had someone look at the tape, and
I did.
did it appear that the consensus at the work session was to prepare this ordinance in the manner that he has written it?
I did have the clerk's office go back and prepare the meeting notes before meeting with legal counsel to make sure we were providing accurate information.
So I guess I have to go back to those who might want to table the motion. What has changed?
Nothing's changed.
What we talked about was that economic development incentives, you agreed with that, I know you did, that the council should have the last opportunity to
Yes.
You did agree with that, right?
What I said was that there are strategic items that are under the purview of the council. One of them is